Furbett, who celebrates a birthday, an important one, a milestone one, this past week, and we wish him all the best in his celebrations of that milestone birthday, wherever he may be celebrating it. We appreciate his efforts, and I'm sure there will be a song to commemorate it as well. So stay tuned and listen up for it. I'm very excited this morning because I had the opportunity to be a part of a very historic event at Port Royal Golf Course, and I have to single out the golf coach from Lehigh University and the Pompano Beach Club and Port Royal Golf Course for that triangular initiative, and the Bermuda Tourism Authority, because the event that took place was the Bermuda Triangle Collegiate Golf Event, Monday and Tuesday of this week. And they're departing today, April 1st. So March 30th and 31st. And on the weekend, they were playing practice rounds. 11 collegiate golf teams here from various states, from Indiana, from Kentucky, from Pennsylvania, from New Jersey, New York, from Florida, from South Carolina. Women's golf being played in Bermuda. 11 five-lady teams, with some teams bringing individual contestants. 67 players in all, along with at least 1 to 2 and a coach and an assistant coach in every team. But it didn't end there. Many family members made the journey with their girls. So you would have seen parents walking around the golf course watching family members participate. You've heard me say it many times how important it is to invest in culture, the arts, and sporting initiatives. Build relationships. And this is exactly what we saw taking place this weekend. And to get events such as this, you don't throw them together in January and hope that they come off in March of 2026. The work to get this event over the hurdle and to have 11 teams competing from NCAA Division I golf in America takes time. At least 18 months in the making. But it takes some know-how and some belief that these type of things are where we need to be putting our investment money. Building highways between communities is the way I see it. Many of you will know that I started a society some 3 years ago, the Bermuda Golf Link Society, for the express purpose of doing just that. Going around different places in the world, playing events, leveraging Bermudians who live overseas and friends of Bermuda who are overseas, and causing them to talk about Bermuda wherever they are, and give reason for them to come to Bermuda, but more importantly, provide an experience such as this so that they can go back and spread the word. Now, that's not immediate. And you know, the tourism that we enjoyed when we were the top of the food chain didn't come about with one full swoop. It took time to build it up. You don't have the Newport to Bermuda race celebrating 100 years because it went off in the first year with the amount of teams that they had during their bumper years. It took the relationship between those communities, making friends in those communities so that people in those communities were working towards something of great benefit. And 40 plus years ago, when I entered the golf industry professionally, having been cultivated in the industry for a decade prior, I remember how the Marion to Bermuda race worked in tandem with the Newport to Bermuda race. Newport Bermuda yacht race happens every other year. And on the other year that it doesn't happen, Marion was coming. And on the year when Newport was here, the organizers for the Marion race were in Bermuda. Now, how did I know that? Because the organizers of the Marion to Bermuda race had timeshare in the 80s at the St. George's Club and the 90s. And they loved golf. And they were members, some of them were members of Catanzet Golf Club as well. And I remember Dr. McFadden, and I remember Mr. Brigitte, I believe was his name. It's coming to me. I'll have to look it up. And they used to come, and I can see his face, and they would play golf, and they would have meetings and organize Marion for the following year. And it made sense. They had reason to be in Bermuda. On the off Newport year, they were bringing the race down, meeting the people on this side, getting them out of Marion, and then jetting here to receive them on arrival. And on the year when Newport was here, they were here having a more relaxed time in Bermuda, playing golf, having fun, scheduling the upcoming year. A year and about. I remember talking to Mr. Anthony Rayner, sending a special shout out to him and the events that he brings to Bermuda on an ongoing basis. And having him on Sports Zone at one time, when I first got to know all about him in his capacity organizing, being part of the organizing committee for Race Week. And you would know that Race Week gets top runners from all around the world. And it also gets recreational runners from all around the world as well, who like to be on that running circuit. Just imagine Bermuda in January, when Race Week takes place. The weather tends to be a little windy and cool and rainy sometimes. And I remember being on the bus going up to the Belmont last January actually, so this year. And being on the bus with two of the runners that ran on the Saturday, who weren't participating in the marathon on the Sunday. And we got on at Grotto Bay together. And the bus was late. and they wanted to get to Horseshoe Bay, and I encouraged them to get off the bus at Chapel Road and walk over to Newstead with me, where I picked up my brother's car, and we drove them to Horseshoe. And in the conversation walking down Chapel Road and driving up to Horseshoe Bay, they shared with me how, as runners, they find the Bermuda January weather ideal. That there's no place better to run and no climate better to run for a runner than what they experience in Bermuda at that time. Now, we also know that people come to Bermuda and don't mind playing golf in that type of weather and have been doing so for over a century now. So here are two events that draw people to Bermuda in those months, in those shoulder months, that we must build up. And then 2 weeks later, or a week later, I'm at the airport taking my steps in, and I see people coming through in ones and twosies and jumping in taxis, and off they go. I says, where are all these folks going? To the dispatcher there. And he says, oh, they're with Bridge. They just jump in a taxi and they go. They don't mind. They know the drill. I said, isn't that something? And then I was talking to one of the bridge players who I knew well, and they were saying, well, yeah, we tend to be indoors a lot, and we make our own fun. It doesn't matter what's happening. We love Bermuda for our bridge tournament. And over the years, hundreds of people coming at that particular time. So I've got a theme going here, folks. I'm here to tell you that the opportunity for Bermuda to increase visitation in the winter must be recognized, that the opportunity lies with getting more events, target events. Now, sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that we have to be the ones, and I'm saying we, those who work in the tourism industry, have to be the one who puts on these tournaments. No, we don't. And when we think we do, we're making the first mistake. We have to be the catalyst for these tournaments. We have to find the people who are connected with these types of events that will be of benefit to Bermuda, and put them in touch with the people on this side who can partner with them and help them logistically at the Bermuda end. That's the model that I envision for Bermuda. I'm not envisioning hiring people to run events in Bermuda, because people in Bermuda tend to know more people in Bermuda. I need to find people from outside of Bermuda. And I don't need to be spending money out there trying to find people when there are people already connected to the people in their communities. Remember, Newport to Bermuda is a relationship between a yachting community overseas and a yachting community in Bermuda. The yachting community in Bermuda is providing that Bermuda hospitality on this end. And a lot of the people being encouraged to come are coming from yachting communities outside of Bermuda. And yes, Bermuda staged the Bermuda Goodwill Golf Tournament in 1953, the oldest, longest-serving Pro-Am golf event in the history of golf, is a Bermuda event being saved by Mr. Bob Carraro, soon to be celebrating 75 years. But the impetus of that is connecting with golf associations, professional associations in the regions and tapping into their network to excite golf pros and amateurs who are already a part of organizations. I'll give you another example. I just shared that 67 women collegiate players played in Bermuda. At least 15 coaches and assistant coaches were on island, together with families that traveled along with them. And they were on the island from Sunday to Wednesday. They leave today. One team came a day early because they had a Bermuda connection. I'll put this in the context of where Bermuda can capitalize on these types of events. If, in fact, this event, which is on the heels of Easter, if these teams are in Bermuda looking to play a practice round on the Sunday and the Saturday, timing is right for a Bermuda championship of sorts that would allow the competitive women of Bermuda to have an opportunity to interact with these competitive ladies coming from overseas. How would you do that? Well, who's to say that a Bermuda four-ball championship, two women teams, for instance, couldn't have been held on the weekend to allow the opportunity for who wanted to participate in a tournament that would carry a national title. So you have 60 ladies. Maybe you get 20 teams, 22 lady teams out of that might enter into the tournament, and then local ladies play, and then the ones that don't want to play, they do their practice rounds in the afternoon. And all of a sudden you have an international event in Bermuda that can take stride and grow into its own by facilitating some college players who might want to participate in that. And it could very well be at the same course, or it could be on a different course as well. Could very well be at Belmont or Tucker's Point or Mid-Ocean or any course. But you capitalize on these visitors being here and giving them another opportunity to see Bermuda and meet Bermudians and compete in a championship of stature. And someone might say, well, Kim, what a wonderful idea. And I say it's not novel. I said that this collegiate event is historic. It's a women's collegiate golf event. I can't remember of one taking place at that level in Bermuda prior, and I'm very honored that one of my students participated for Lehigh, represented Lehigh University at the event. But I'm here to tell you that in the 70s, Yale University golf team used to come and participate as a collective in the Bermuda Amateur every year. I met them. And someone said, Yale used to bring a golf team to Bermuda? Yes, they did. In the 70s? Yes. 50 years ago? Yes. Why? Because in the 60s, the Yale golf coach worked in Bermuda, came to Bermuda from Scotland, I believe. Mr. Dave Patterson was the pro at Riddles Bay. May have done a stint at the Princess as well. Then went on to Connecticut, became the golf pro at a great golf course called the Yale Golf Club, which is owned by Yale University. We're the home of the Yale golf team. And so, before collegiate events were held overseas in great abundance, the Yale team took an overseas trip to somewhere where their golf coach was very well versed. Why? Why would he do that? For a couple of reasons. Number one, he knew the golf courses in Bermuda were of high quality. Number two, he knew that the weather conditions were very difficult and his players would learn how to play in difficult windy conditions at Mid-Ocean or Port Royal, wherever the Bermuda Amateur was being held. At that time, it used to be held at Mid-Ocean as well. And number three, it was kind of a homecoming for him because he spent some very quality years of his early development in his career in Bermuda. You know, when I left Bermuda in 1980 to play on the PGA European Tour representing Tucker's Castle Harbor, which is now Tucker's Point, one of my regular roommates was a young man named Peter Taravanian. Peter Taravanian won, I believe, may have been the Czech Open on the European Tour. He won the Japan Open on the Japanese Tour. He lives in Malaysia. Peter Taravanian comes from Duxbury, Massachusetts, and was a standout player for who? Dave Patterson at Yale University. What an introduction. We're the same age. Those relationships that were made in Bermuda in the 60s and the 70s carried forth to me as I traveled in Europe. The same relationships that young ladies are making in Bermuda this week in a sports tourism event will carry themselves forward beyond Bermuda and beyond 2026. Because right now I'm talking about things that happened in 1976 that still bear fruit today. Relationships. Two of the young ladies representing Woolford University were sitting on the back of the 18th green, and I walked up to them on Sunday and introduced myself and said, "Where are you from?" Referring to Woolford. They said, "We're from England." I said, "Wonderful. Whereabouts are you from in England?" One says, "I'm from Windsor." I said, "Where do you play?" And she named a castle course that I wasn't quite familiar with. And the other one says, "I'm from Bournemouth." I said, "Isn't that something? I used to take golf lessons at Bournemouth, at Ferndown. That's my home club," she said. I said, "Isn't that something? Well, when you go in the dining room, it's named after Mr. Sewell." She says, "You're right." I says, "Yes, he used to teach me. He won the English Amateur when he was a young man. Very celebrated golf pro he was." And then I remembered, "Are you familiar with Ferndown Forest?" I said. And she says, "That's where I take my golf lessons." I says, "Martin Thompson?" "Oh my gosh." Well, Martin Thompson was on this very show with my friend that looked like Elvis Presley, who was a member at the same club in Ferndown. He was the English girls golf coach. And I phoned him and he talked to the young lady right there. Relationships are what build tourism. You can't buy that type of advertisement, but you've got to put yourself in the position to make the relationships in the first instance. And when we're cultivating these 11 teams in Division I, there are 11 of about 1,000 of teams out there just in Division I. And you've got hundreds of teams in other divisions, men's and women's teams. The future. The same way we talk about the college weeks that we harbored in the 70s that was unbridled. The children coming down there on their own, and some people used to say, well, they used to wreck hotels. These young persons are coming, and they're accompanied by their coach, and they're representing their universities, and no different than in the arts when the crocodilians come here to sing, and the different universities singing groups come here. There are a myriad of reasons why we should be tapping into the educational aspect of tourism. In this respect, we tapped into the educational aspect of tourism as it relates to college golf. And I shared with you 50 years ago that was being done informally as well, with Yale and other communities connect with Bermuda connections and relationships. But let me go back 50 years prior to that, if I may, and share with you that earlier this week I had the honor to be invited to BIAS, which really is the acronym for the Bermuda Institute of Oceanographic Sciences, now referred to as BIAS, which is now ASU, Arizona State University, BIAS in Bermuda, in my constituency in St. George's, I might have, in Ferry Reach. One of the largest employers in St. George. An educational institute connected with Bermuda for us over a century. Once a hotel golf course in Ferry Reach, now is home to an important scientific institute that does research in our waters, very much a part and significant to different global conditions that get transmitted through the sea. And with that come hundreds of students annually, professors in and out of Bermuda, some based here. I want to send a special shout out to Dr. Craig Carlson, who has promised me, and Dr. Mark Ashard, who both have promised me that in May they will come on the show and we will talk about BIAS. Educational tourism has been around. And when you think about educational tourism, you just think about how the aquarium and BIAS had a connection. I'm going back 100 years. And both had golf courses on their doorsteps as well, with Frascati being up there in the hill on the other side of Whitney Institute. You know, when I had to go and a year ago and do a tribute for the late Justice Dorothy Brandt Chin Brandt, I did so at the Explorers Club in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, because that's where she was a member of that club, and she used to come to Bermuda to take golf lessons from me at least 5 or 6 times a year. And when I was at the Explorers Club, and at the reception afterwards, the repast afterwards, the management of the club came up to me and made it known to me that they host many events there in conjunction with fundraisers connected with Bermuda. Educational tourism at play in Bermuda. My good friend Dr. Jeffrey Sammons with retired from New York University. New York University was very integral in the establishment of places like Byers here in Bermuda. We see different universities coming and signing articulation agreements like Troy and the like with their. We need to leverage these relationships and make the connections that can be of benefit to causing people to come to Bermuda. Good morning, caller. Welcome. You are on Tourism in Focus.
Good morning, Kim. How are you this morning?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Just one or two things.
Go ahead.
Are you talking actually sports tourism?
I'm talking sports, culture, arts, relationship tourism. That's what truly I'm talking about, because the success of Bermuda getting events you don't need to spend as much money for a big ticket item as you can spread it around and create relationships to percolate, but it takes time. They don't happen immediately. They happen by, it's like doing good gardening. You got to water it and you've got to weed it out. And once it takes root, then the Bermuda, I'm speaking about and truly in essence, the National Tourism Plan. When you work a plan, when you're building a house, you can't see that house unless you've seen the blueprints when you're putting that tank down, but try building it without the tank and without the foundation. And what I'm talking about is the arts, music, sport, all types of sports. They are formed when you get the organizations internationally connected with the organizations that exist in Bermuda. And
now that's where I'm going.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Who would be, I wouldn't say responsible, but who would make the first step to reach out to collaborate with these different organizations? Because I don't think it comes under the BTA to actually make the first step to broaden the tourism market on the island. You get what I'm saying?
Well, I think the BTA, and I declare my interest. I'm a part of the BTA, right? I don't run it as per se, but I'm a director and I'm part of policy, and I try to influence. And I believe that we have a role to be a catalyst in this, and initiating a forward plan that encourages and identifies who best to make those links. And I use, and most people think I only talk about golf, but I'm not a one-trick pony. I just use golf because I know the mechanisms of it, but I know sport is sport is sport, and art is art is art, and culture, and they're very intertwined. So, for instance, if I want to do something in the equestrian sphere, right? I want to have a boutique equestrian event here. I'm not looking for any government organization to do it. I'm looking for a government organization to link up with the Bermuda experts like the Equestrian Federation and those people who evolved and the sponsors and the people, and then make them feel assured that when they need me to be able to help pool some of the things that would help make it possible. They have the connections in Kentucky, in Florida, in Maryland, and different places.
So wouldn't we look at a lack of facilities to facilitate some of these adventures, even equestrian? You need a simple thing like stables, because you ain't talking about a $20 horse. You can bring a horse that's $500,000 plus.
Well, I just use a equestrian as one of the things, but what I see us needing to do, for instance, right, is not try to reinvent the wheel yet. For instance, I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, a major sports tourism event took place in Bermuda. One of the newest sports on the newest sport on the block, pickleball. Now, I give credit to the minister responsible for tourism and sport and culture for being very bullish on that. I give bigger kudos to Mr. Gavin Manders and his team for taking Bermuda, coming from tennis and seizing the opportunity to go and compete in the Caribbean, and then connect with the Caribbean organizations, and then present to a minister who saw the value of it and pulled it off. And more importantly, the infrastructure that been growing around this sport was such that a new facility was able to come to the rescue when weather was not cooperative. Right? Now, I liken that to when I was the age of younger than Mr. Manders and had two big tournaments that I brought to Bermuda, and people didn't buy into it. Those tournaments ended up in Jamaica and ended up in and the other one, the $1 million tournament was the first $1 million tournament, ended up down at Trial in Jamaica. They wanted to come to Bermuda. They came to Bermuda and met with me and Mr. Horton. Okay, but we couldn't convince the then powers that be that would be of benefit. So you snooze, you lose. And the other one was the World Cup of golf, and it went somewhere else. So when you have Bermudians competing overseas, they make connections that you can't get through the door to make. And
that's correct.
And that pickleball tournament happened because those athletes saw something and brought it to someone who believed them and knew where it could go, right? And linked us up in a Caribbean championships. Now, I used the example in golf already, that relationships were what had events percolating in Bermuda in great abundance 50 years ago. We've got to facilitate people in Bermuda some who would be very critical. Their counterparts 30, 40 years ago were making things happen for the benefit of Bermuda. There's a lot of, and I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of selfishness going on. There's a lot of insular selfishness going on in Bermuda. And I've seen it, having been one who benefited. I'm not afraid to tell you that the work of a lady named Muriel Parker back 50 years ago worked like 20 people for Bermuda to make things happen. And there were other people like her in different disciplines, and other people like her even in golf, that made things happen internationally for Bermuda by leveraging the relationships they had overseas. And that is one of the reasons. That is what I feel is important to facilitate, to cause to happen. It does it, and we have the relationships around the world, you know, because I travel.
Well, we have a whole host of sports people out there, and a whole lot of different disciplines all around the world as we speak today. So, you know, connections could be made just by playing football, playing cricket. You know what they say, deals are made on golf courses.
Yes.
But not all deals.
But a lot. But the other thing is that, for instance, in the arts, we've got a lot of Bermudians. I think of Lana Young. I think of the young man, Mr. Criswell, Edward Criswell's son. These lot are making a name for making the name for themselves in the arts, and they love Bermuda. I see them posting about Bermuda. I look at Shiona Tarini out there, and what we need to do is think, how do we cause these people to do what every Bermudian wants to do, you know? give back to their country in a way in which they can leverage their contacts to bring something to our shores. And that's where I think we need to go. We need to, and the fact is that because we have so many Bermudians that now live overseas, it's important that we repatriate their intellectual love for Bermuda. Not necessarily their intellectual capacity, their love for Bermuda never wanes. So we have an opportunity to connect with our own people and draw them onto ourselves in a way that they could be out there helping us sell Bermuda. I saw that 4 years ago when I had that event between Yorkshire and Bermuda, and the Bermuda team were Bermudians living in England. I brought them together, and then I got a couple of the former Bermuda residents to join in, their children to join in with my team. And that connection mushroomed. Imagine if that was what the whole purpose of finding people for Bermuda, because you're not talking about a lot of people.
Let me switch just a little bit.
Go ahead.
Means that you're in, you have a seat at the BTA. The BTA puts out a projection of numbers of tourists they should expect every year.
Yeah, there are targets. There are targets to that are set to get greater increases. A lot of the focus of recent has been on getting greater increase in spend because we didn't have the beds, and also getting more people in the winter months because that's the period of unsold inventory. And you
where I'm heading at.
Yeah.
Because if I talk to taxi drivers tells me that our tourism season is only 17 weeks. I can understand the way it was put to me. That from May to, I think they said Labor Day was the peak season for Bermuda tourism. Now, my question is, 17 weeks out of 52 is kind of difficult. That will make it kind of difficult for someone to make a living off 17 weeks, whether it be taxi drivers, minibus operators, retail stores up downtown. What is the BTA doing to increase or extend the season at least to Thanksgiving?
Well, and beyond Thanksgiving, because a lot of the events that we're seeing percolating are supported by them and encouraged by them. I mean, I talked about the event that took place yesterday, right? And with all those young golfers, that was a BTA initiative that was done in conjunction with a university coach overseas, but it didn't happen immediately. It took months to be able to cultivate, and it took a commitment on the other side. So that that's an example. That's an example there. And
okay, so are we trying extending the tourism season to hotel beds?
Well,
I understand.
You're gonna see, and I don't accept that. Come Labor Day. Come Labor Day, what you see is a fall off in cruise ships, right? But I remember last October was very busy, and I've been pushing for greater volume from November through those months: November, December, January,
right.
January, February.
Well,
yeah.
I said I went to Labor Day because that's when the U.S. Opens back up schools.
Yeah.
So, they come for a cruise, the children will come for a cruise, and they're back home getting ready for school after our cup match. So, the 2 weeks they have in August, I think that's when school is getting ready to open, or if not open already. So that's where I said somewhere between May and September.
Now,
And then it goes, it falls off from that point.
well, I'm here to tell you that one major thing that's taking place, and a lot of focus is on the meeting and incentive groups, is the opening of the Fairmont Southampton Princess Hotel this year. I mean, that's going to be huge, challenging as well, because it remains to be seen how much of the business that other hotels have enjoyed as a consequence of it not being open, how that plays itself out. But that's an opportunity, and I know efforts are being made to market Bermuda to capitalize on that. And meetings and incentives are a very pivotal part of that, and efforts are being made. Maybe I might be able to get folks in from the BTA to speak more specifically to what they do, because, like I said, I'm in a policy level and they're more in an operations. But I do know great efforts are being made in that space, and I could tell you that there are. Obviously, there are challenges in Bermuda when it comes to seasonality, as it relates to hurricanes as well. Last year, some of the hurricanes impacted some of the bookings that took place during hurricane season. But the quality of visitor that's coming are spending more, and the spend off of the people on the cruise ships is increasing as well, and that bodes well for Bermuda.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you one more, and then I'll listen to you off air.
Mm-hmm.
You touched on cruise ships. Why doesn't Bermuda, or why has Bermuda gotten away from having a cruise ship in the Grassy Bay where they used to tender to shore? And the reason I ask that is because I think last year Bahamas broke its one-day visitor arrivals, and that was at 32,000 a day. I was also made aware that Dockyard only could have so much of a capacity they could hold at one time. Is that correct?
Well, I'm sure. I don't know what the actual capacity for Dockyard would be, but when you think that there's two very large ships in Dockyard at one time, I couldn't see it holding three, because you gotta realize, and to answer your Grassy Bay question, if you got two big ships in Dockyard, do you have the infrastructure in the island to accommodate? We don't. We're not as large as Bahamas, and I believe that when you do have two cruise ships in Dockyard and maybe one at another port, you have to realize that the island has a saturation point when you consider that people have to move around the island and the like. There's only so. That's why balance. That's why balance is the operative word between. Always been the opposite. The optimum word between cruise and air visitors. Balance, and I believe the opportunity.
So do we have a transportation problem on the island? So we cannot transport the cruise ships and service the airport and hotels. We don't have enough transportation on the island for that.
Well, when you do double load up on what you were suggesting is how could we put them in Grassy Bay? And I'm saying to myself, why would you want to bring more into Grassy Bay when we're trying to get more people coming in air to get more people in Bermuda? Definitely between November and March, but with the Princess coming, we always are got to be concerned about the management of it. Now, listen, we're coming up to the top of the hour.
Okay, you go have a good one. I'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And as Brother Cromwell would say, balance matters. We have to balance that out. And that's where transportation economics and transportation management comes into play, into how you could get folks around the island. I will say this for Bermuda, is that the opportunity that we must seize ourselves on, and I take the opportunity each and every week to herald the work of the volunteers who have cleaned up Fort Albert, who are out there at Fort Cunningham, the Friends of St. George's, having more amenities, making better use of the forts, having mom and pop-up shops in the forts, bathrooms in the fort, mean that the minibus operators and the taxis taking people around the country have some other locations that can showcase Bermuda at its best. And the forts are in the most scenic spots anyway, strategically located. And we've seen them do great work up at Fort Albert. We've seen them do great work up at Martel Towers. We see them out at Fort Cunningham. We've seen the reopening of Fort up at Fort Hamilton and the like. And those outposts having amenities there mean that we can start moving the people around the country a lot easier, rather than everybody just going to the same places that they always did. And as we look at causing people to go to even other beaches as well in Bermuda, I love it out there at Cooper's Island. What a beautiful place that is. And there are many other enclaves in Bermuda that we have to avail ourselves to. Send a special, just before I close today, I want to recognize two gentlemen who have come and made Bermuda their home. Alfred Conrad and Gaza Wolf had a retirement celebration at Wahoo Restaurant. And many people know that Wahoo Restaurant will be under new ownership, is under new ownership in St. George's, and the family of the White Horse family are now up on Water Street with Wahoo as well. Alfred, I know Alfred and Gaza personally. I've known Alfred longer and closer through him being in St. George's at the golf club, at the St. Margaret Rose restaurant. And they have made Bermuda their home. They've assimilated. But more importantly, what I truly love about them is that they became a very integral part of the community. Events that were going on in the community, whether or not it be at St. George's Cricket Club, whether or not it be at St. George's Golf Club when we were there, they participated in it, they supported it, and they embodied our community. Alfred and Gaza, we love you. We thank you for what you brought to St. George's as businessman. We appreciate the friendship that you've cultivated. In the case of Alfred, for over 4 to 5 decades, coming to Bermuda as a very young man, marrying a St. Georgian. Today, having Alfred's version of fish chowder, which very much has become the Bermuda version of fish chowder. Alfred You and Gaza remind me of Fritz. Fritz Ryder, the late Fritz Ryder, who I love dearly. When Fritz loved his adopted Bermuda, and you guys have made Bermuda your home. Your children are raised here. Your children are Bermudian. And we truly, truly appreciate what you've brought to our country, what you've done in the hospitality industry, how you built a business that balanced local customers and overseas customers. I saw that when Mulligan's was up at the golf club and the golf club closed in 2007 or 8, and then you somewhere thereabouts started Wahoo down at the... I remember when you started Temptations as well. And I remember the visitors that used to be at the Margaret Rose and used to come to the Holiday Inn and Lowe's, and they followed you there. They loved your cooking. And, you know, I remember when Tom Watson came to Bermuda, the great golfer, and he got a chance to eat and be a part of your hospitality as the chef. And we appreciate you both. Thank you. That's our show for today, folks. Lord willing, we'll be back with you next week on Tourism in Focus. Thanks to our callers, and thank you for that great young man for calling in and all his questions and his comments. We appreciate you ever so much. God bless.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.